on TV. They're always blaming Islam. They've done a very thorough job of hatred here. Now, isn't it interesting, if you point out the hatred they've spewed about Islam, you are roundly ignored. But if you make one veiled reference to the Jewish hatred of everyone around them, you are instantly vilified as an anti-Semite. And so everybody's afraid to even speak up if they know the truth, because they're afraid to be labeled an anti-Semite. Me, I just don't want to go to my grave with the idea that I was a hypocrite and a liar. I can't accept that for myself, and I won't accept it from my nation. And you know something, Tex? People like us who are working every day to make sure new people can learn these facts, we're taking enormous risks on behalf of the world, and yet we still don't get the traction we deserve. What is it we can do in this environment except for telling one person at a time? I think we are making a difference, by the way.
Well, here's the thing as I see it, Daryl. And by the way, you know, if you don't agree with me, I know you're a friend. You know my heart, and that's what's important. And I know your heart. And last evening, I had a wonderful couple over to our house. My wife Wanda and I did. And she's a Christian lady. Her husband is a doctor, a physician. Last year, she went and visited some Muslim countries. And she particularly went to Egypt, I believe. And she came back and she said, you know, I loved those people. I loved the Egyptians, and they were so kind, and there were so many good people there. She said, you know, we have been lied to about the Muslim people, about the Egyptians, about others. She said, I have my heart reaches out. And she actually asked me, what can I do to reach out to Muslims and to those people? Now, see, this I believe is a true Christian. And by the way, she didn't even really know what I believed about these issues. But
she was courageous enough to even test her truth, regardless of what your reaction would be, because that's somebody of conviction and courage, is what it is.
Oh yes. Well, she and her husband, she said, you know, she's told several people that they look at her like she's crazy, because most Americans, and this is a sad thing, but here is where I want Muslims to understand something. There are a great number of Americans like you and I, Daryl, who do know the truth, and we're working very, very hard. Now, what Muslims need to do is don't become frustrated, and don't. Here's the whole thing. When you do strive for peace, for example, let me give you an example. I believe from everything I've read, and I've read the letters that he wrote to our President George Bush, from everything I have seen and his life, President Ahmadinejad of Iran is a peacemaker. All right? Now, I'm not saying he's a perfect man, and I'm not saying he's done everything right, but I believe, as compared to, let's say, Israel's former Prime Minister Netanyahu, or Shimon Peres of Israel, or
our President George Bush,
or even Barack Obama. What we're talking about here is a man who wants peace, and he's come to the United Nations, and everything out of his mouth. He's had the courage to go before Jewish billionaires in America at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, members of the Zionist Council on Foreign Relations, and say, we, the Muslim people of Iran, want to have world peace. He wrote George Bush, and he said, I know you're a Christian, I'm a Muslim, but we do, you know, from Ahmadinejad's standpoint, we worship God. Doesn't that give us something common? Shouldn't we both work for world peace and peace between our two nations? Guess what George Bush did? He refused to even answer it. He said, no, I'm not even going to answer it.
Well, is George Bush Is George Bush, in fact, a Christian? And you pointed out earlier, no, he's not. He follows edicts and doctrines that are absolutely antithetical to the Christian faith.
That's right. Now, if a Muslim man does something wrong, does something evil, and they do sometimes, let's face it, just like people who claim to be Christian can do some terrible things, and they're not really Christian. Muslims do these things, but let me tell the people there so they'll understand this. Whenever a Muslim commits a murder or does something wrong, and he does it in the name of Allah, he will get maximum press coverage in America for that.
Yeah.
When a Jewish person does something wrong, a Jew, it's almost never mentioned.
That's right.
And so, therefore, to me, you know, it's sort of like I used to be a member of the U.S. Air Force. I was in the Air Force for over 20 years.
Yep.
And I was told because you're in uniform, I know you were a serviceman too, because you're in uniform, you're an ambassador. You represent all the U.S. military, so behave yourself and use good conduct. I would appeal to Muslims, since whatever you do that's wrong will be used against you, and they will say, see, all Muslims are like that, then by all means, always have good conduct. It's interesting that no matter how peaceful the president of Iran, Mr. Ahmadinejad, is, he is still called Hitler by the Jews and by the Zionist Christians and by George W. Bush. So he cannot do anything to get away from the lies that have been stated about him.
Well, you know, one of the big things that has happened, and I have to credit you for this as well, and we talked about this because it was an important shift. You know, many of the people in the truth movement, and I use that word rather lightly because there's a lot of deception within this truth movement, but there are some people who have put out a great load of facts, and you know who I'm referring to. You were able to speak your truth because people are feeling more comfortable with more of the facts as time has gone on. You were able to actually share a more truth than you had in the past because what we're finding out is in this late period, it's getting late, Tex, we're in the last throes of our country, people are becoming emboldened to tell the truth, and you were able in a forum that generally wouldn't go as far as you did. We were allowed to go that far, and that meant this was important. That meant that so many thousands of more people were introduced for the first time to the facts, and you were able to introduce those facts as a result of that particular interview that I'm discussing with you now, and that was a big win for us.
Well, I appreciate that, Darrell. But you know, here again, you have a website. It has a lot of truth on it.
Yeah.
And I will say this: before the internet, we really had a real difficulty getting the facts out, the truth out.
Yeah.
We do have the internet now. Now, you know, one of the things that I would like to, if you don't mind, and by the way, you know, any place you want to take the program, it's your program, Darrell. But I want to tell people something that they need to be very careful about.
Yeah.
We now have a new president of America, of the United States, Barack Obama.
Okay.
January 20th, he will take office. This man, believe me, is an enemy of Islam.
Yeah.
He is a great, great enemy of Islam. Now, they have created a myth about him because, you know, for a while he went to a school, an Islamic school in Indonesia. His father evidently came from Africa and was a Muslim. But keep this in mind. It's probably for those very reasons that Obama is a hater of Islam. Yes, I want to say that again. I believe he is a hater of Islam.
Yeah.
And he has brought around him already. He is gathering around him Zionist enemies of Islam.
Well, Zionist enemies of the world.
That's right. And Obama is determined to make war on Islam around the world.
I agree with that 100%. And in fact, I think he is far more dangerous than George Bush because I think he is more articulate and he's more able to couch his arguments in this rhetoric that is much more effective. And I think everybody has in their head